Here's Dad's orchid greenhouse. With the heater and the fan. Everybody knows it's not a visit to my parents' house in Florida without pictures of my dad's orchids. I'll insert some pictures of some of the orchids that are inside the house blooming. My dad has about 80 orchids. This is down from, I don't know, his peak of 120 or something. But you like when you come to his house, you gotta admire the orchids. So I'm hoping that you can see the bird feeders and maybe there'll be some birds coming through. So I'm hoping the sound is okay. I feel like this is not gonna work. Forget it. Okay, well, I had to move because the noise of the maintenance guys is just kind of unrelenting. I don't know what they're doing, but you can hear them buzzing around. It feels like all morning, every day. And now I've got construction going across the little pond here. Anyway, I'm hoping with the microphone the sound won't be so horrible. We'll see. Anyway, t-shirts out. It's been hot. I think it's hot. 80 degrees. I think that's hot. And humid. So my hair, I feel like my hair is doing weird things. I'm sweating and it's early in the morning. I took a walk and at like, I don't know, 7:38 and I was like sweating. Anyway, enough about the weather because I'm sure it's cold for most people and they're probably like, we don't really want to hear about it. So busy. So not a super ton of reading, but let's hop to it. So the first thing I finished was A Furious Sky, The 500-Year History of America's Hurricanes by Eric J. Dolan. This is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a history of hurricanes that have hit the America, mostly the United States, but the Caribbean is mentioned as well. And this is really from the time of European colonization on. So not anything prior to that. He does start off talking about how hurricanes shaped the history of the United States. So talking about hurricanes that hit the Massachusetts Bay Colony, hurricane that hit the Virginia colony, and how hurricanes, a couple of different hurricanes, influenced the settlement of Florida and the Spanish colonization of Florida. So that was interesting. And then a lot of this goes into the development of meteorology and the understanding of hurricanes. So understanding how, hurricanes are, a whirlwind around an eye, and how hurricanes develop, how they intensify, how they travel. So he really goes through sort of the history of that. And then, talking about the importance of radio and for tracking storms, right? It's important to have someone down in Florida being able to communicate with someone in the Carolinas who can communicate, to again track storms And then, of course, how interest in predicting and forecasting storms, where they'll hit, you know, how strong they'll be, etc. So the introduction of satellites and computer modeling, and I thought all of that was very interesting. Um, that part of the book, takes us to like the 1980s. And then he's got a chapter that sort of I think it's called, the Rogues Gallery. So that is talking about Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Katrina. Um, and, that chapter is really nothing new about hurricane research. It really is just this hurricane happened, this is where it hit, this is how strong it was, here's the damage, um, you know, it- uh, and then with some personal interest stories thrown in there, like here's some families recounting of their experience in that hurricane. To me, that chapter was not very interesting. And also, it felt a little, disaster porn y, like taking entertainment out of the horror that these families experienced. I don't know. It was anyway. Um, and then the epilogue was talking about, and this was a brief epilogue, talking about the impact of the greenhouse effect on hurricanes, that hurricanes will likely be stronger. And there's some concern that already we're seeing more Category 5 hurricanes than have historically been observed. Um, that hurricanes will uh, carry heavier rainfall, and that hurricanes are more likely to develop as oceans warm. Personally, I was interested in that material, but that's really not covered in this book very much at all. So, again, this book was very much a history of hurricanes in the United States. That that sums it up. I read a Brazilian book, Pedro and Marques Take Stock, a picaresque novel. And this is by Jose Falero, translated by Julia Sanches. And she is the translator for Eva Balthazar's books into English. I think I mentioned this is a Portuguese book, um, talking about um, a couple of guys who are grocery stock clerks in sort of the slums of Porto Alegre in Brazil. I looked up, I was curious. I mean, I had in my head what a picaresque was, but I looked up at Wikipedia, like, what is the exact definition? And Wikipedia describes a picaresque as the adventures of a roguish lout, an appealing hero, usually of low social class, who lives by his wits in a corrupt society. And that's exactly what this novel is. Pedro and Marques are, um, again, poor, ooh, poor. Um, they talk about poverty in Brazil and how you can't really break out of that their grandparents were incredibly poor, their parents were incredibly poor. It doesn't matter how hard you work, they're going to be incredibly poor. And so they cook up some scheme with some friends to sell marijuana and make their fortunes. And so this is this is what happens. And then, um, it kind of turns sideways. This is a great vacation read, entertaining, um, fun. Um, y- their antics are sort of goofy, but there's definitely some serious content about poverty in Brazil, as well as consumerism. Um, so that was a fun read. So, what am I reading currently? I am reading the lovely, the Lonely Passion of Judith Hearne by Brian Moore. This is an NYRB classic. This is, I'm not super far into it, but I'm really like, oh, Judith Hearne is a single 40-ish woman living in Belfast. She's poor but genteel. She's lonely. She's a sad, desperate woman. And I'm really nervous about what's going to happen to her because I'm afraid she's going to make some bad choices, and really I'm nervous. I'll just leave it at that. And then I'm also listening to a memoir by Cristina Rivera Garza. I'm listening to her memoir, Liliana's Invincible Summer. And this is her writing about her sister's femicide, which occurred 30 years previously. I think I heard about this book. I think read it about, I think I read a review on Kirkus, but I think Lindy, um, of Lindy's Magpie Reads, I'll link her below. I think Lindy read and enjoyed this book. So um, I just started that not that long ago. Um, and that's it. My mother and I are having some bookish adventures. So I'm thinking we might do a book haul. Um, so that might be kind of fun. Um, that's it. That's all I got. It's all the news. It's fit to print. um, talk to you all later.